Okay, boys and girls. So the lesson is squares versus cubes. On the left, we have a square, and on the right, we have a cube. I'm just going to abbreviate. So the idea is that squares have a certain number of dimensions, and cubes also have a certain number of dimensions. Well, squares have two dimensions. They have two lines. One's vertical in this case, one's horizontal. You could say it has a length and it has a width. So that's two dimensions. And then a cube has a third dimension. What would that third dimension be? Well, it still looks a lot like a square because it has length and width, but it also has depth. So I'll just make that a D. Depth makes it like 3D, like a movie. 3D, you can see in and out, woo, like that, right? Good. So, okay, what's one dimension look like? If I'm going backward, three dimensions a cube, two dimensions is like a square. One dimension would simply be a line. That's one dimension, whether it's length or width, that's one dimension right there. So, what would zero dimensions be? It would kind of like be a point. A point could be considered no dimensions because it doesn't really have length or width. We represent it as a dot, which you can measure, but in reality, a point is a fixed space in a fixed piece of space that you really can't measure. It's just a starting point or an ending point. It's an anomaly. Okay, so zero dimensions. One dimension is like a length or a width. Two dimensions is like a square or a rectangle or any flat object. It could be a triangle or anything. Three dimensions, it's a cube, but it could also be any other kind of prism or a pyramid or even like a cone. So, what's my point? Well, the cool thing in math, like if I know that 2 times 2 gives me the area of this square, which is 4 square units, I could write it with the word square units, or I could use a little exponent. And that just means that I'm counting actual squares. There's four of them. Another way to think about that is that 2 times 2, I can also say is the same thing as 2 squared. That's an exponent right there, boys and girls. That actually means you take whatever that base number is, multiply it together that many times. So if there are two sides, 2 times 2 is 4. As opposed to a cube is three dimensions. So I know to find its volume, it will be 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8 cubic units, because literally there are 8 mini cubes that make up this cube. But on the flip side here, I could write 2 times 2 times 2 as 2 to the third power. And I would say that as 2 cubed because this exponent of 3 stands for repeated multiplication of this base number of 2. So these are two ways of saying the same thing, and this is still 8. 2 to the third power is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. So that concept is super important, this idea of exponent. We'll be studying that more in the future, but this was a quick little lesson on simply squares and cubes, two dimensions, three dimensions, and how they match up with this word exponent. All right, thanks for watching.